The Barn of Shadows, a haunting in Okinawa. On the outskirts of a quiet village in Okinawa stood an old, weather-beaten barn, surrounded by a thick forest of ancient trees. For as long as anyone could remember, the barn had been abandoned, left to rot in solitude. The villagers spoke of it in hushed tones, calling it the Barn of Shadows. Children were warned to stay away, and even the bravest men in the village avoided it, especially after sunset. It was said that something terrible had happened there long ago, though no one knew exactly what. Some claimed it had once been a gathering place for secret rituals. Others whispered of a vengeful spirit that haunted the grounds. But over time, the stories had blurred into legend, and only the elders truly believed. One summer, Taro, a university student from the city, came to visit his grandmother, who lived in the village. He had grown up hearing the tales of the haunted barn, but dismissed them as superstitions meant to scare kids. Determined to prove the stories were nonsense, Taro convinced his friends to explore the barn one night. It would be a fun adventure, something to pass the time and mock the village's ghost stories. That evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, Taro and his three friends, Kenji, Yuki, and Ayumi, made their way to the barn. The dense forest surrounding the structure seemed unnaturally quiet, as though the animals themselves had fled. A light mist clung to the ground, and the smell of wet earth filled the air. The barn, once a grand structure, was now a decaying relic, its wooden beams sagging under years of neglect. Vines twisted around its walls like grasping fingers, and the door hung slightly ajar, creaking softly in the wind. "We'll be in and out," Taro assured his friends, though his own heart raced with a mixture of excitement and fear. They stepped inside. The interior was dark and damp, with the remnants of old farming equipment scattered across the floor. Moonlight streamed in through the broken windows, casting long, eerie shadows on the walls. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of mold and something else, something faintly metallic, like blood. Kenji, always the boldest of the group, shone his flashlight around. "See? Just an old barn. Nothing to be scared of," he said with a grin. But as the light flickered across the back of the barn, something caught Yuki's eye. "What's that?" she asked, pointing to a far corner. There, hidden beneath a pile of rotting wood, was an old well, its cover partially broken. A chill ran through them all. Curiosity got the better of them, and Kenji approached the well. "This must be where the villagers think the ghost lives," he laughed, kicking at the broken planks, but his laughter died in his throat when they heard it, a faint, rhythmic tapping sound coming from deep within the well. "Did you hear that?" Ayumi whispered, her voice trembling. The tapping continued, slow and deliberate, like something trying to communicate. Then a voice, soft and distant like a child's, rose from the depths of the well. "Help me, I'm trapped down here," it whimpered, echoing eerily in the silence of the barn. Taro felt his stomach lurch. The voice sounded real, too real to be a trick of the wind or imagination, but it also felt wrong. There was something unsettling in its tone, something that sent a wave of dread through his body. "Maybe it's just an echo or a prank someone set up," Kenji stammered, though his face had gone pale. "Let's just check it out." Before anyone could protest, Kenji leaned over the well and shined his flashlight down. The beam barely penetrated the darkness. It was as if the light was swallowed whole by the inky black void. The voice called out again, louder this time, more urgent. "Please, and help me." Ayumi stepped back, shaking her head. "We need to leave, now!" But it was too late. As if responding to the voice, the barn door slammed shut with a deafening bang and the temperature plummeted. Their flashlights flickered, and the barn was plunged into near darkness. The tapping grew louder, more frantic, and now there was a scraping sound, like something was clawing its way up the inside of the well. Taro's pulse raced as the floor beneath them began to tremble. Shadows seemed to shift and crawl along the walls, twisting into grotesque shapes. The air was thick with an oppressive energy, as though something unseen was suffocating the life out of the room. Then from the well, A hand emerged. Small, pale, and shriveled. It clawed at the edge, pulling up a figure. At first glance, it appeared to be a child, but as it hoisted itself up into the dim light, they could see it was something far worse. Its skin was stretched tight over its bones, gray and mottled, and its eyes, deep, empty sockets, oozed with a dark, tar-like substance. Its mouth was twisted into a grotesque grin, revealing rows of jagged, yellowed teeth. Kenji stumbled backward, screaming, but the creature moved unnaturally fast, scuttling across the floor like a spider. It reached him in seconds, latching onto his leg with bone-crushing strength. His screams filled the barn as it dragged him toward the well. "Help me!" Kenji shrieked. But the others were frozen in terror, unable to move as the creature pulled him closer to the gaping hole. His body jerked violently as he was sucked into the blackness, his screams fading into the depths. Without thinking, Taro grabbed Ayumi and Yuki, pulling them toward the door. They shoved against it, but it wouldn't budge. The shadows seemed to pulse, alive with malevolent intent. The thing from the well was crawling toward them now, its body twisting and contorting as it advanced, that terrible grin never fading. In desperation, Taro kicked at the door with all his strength. Finally, with a splintering crack, it flew open and they tumbled outside, gasping for breath. Behind them, the barn groaned as if alive, the shadows inside writhing like a nest of serpents. The creature stopped at the threshold, its hollow eyes gleaming with hatred, but it did not follow them. They ran, not stopping until they reached the village. When they told the villagers what had happened, the elders nodded gravely. The story had been true all along. Long ago, a child had fallen into the well in that barn and died. The villagers had tried to retrieve the body, but something had taken the child, a spirit, a demon, no one knew for sure. The barn had been sealed ever since, cursed by whatever lurked inside. Taro and his friends never returned to the barn, but on quiet nights, when the wind blew just right, they could still hear the faint tapping and the childlike voice, forever calling for help from the well that led to darkness.